Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Evolutionaries Discuss call, where we are talking about water, consciousness, and the work of Masaru Emoto. And I'm really delighted to have some amazing evolutionaries on this week's call. We've got Lorraine, Gabriel, who is CEO of the Museum of Cultural Arts. We have Matt Thornton, Director of the Emoto Peace Project UK. Mark Golding, who is a water visionary. Anne Peckham, who is a lifestyle advisor and published author. Gabriel Dayan, who is founder of Transformation Masters. Christian Kyriacou, who is a sound healer and the house whisperer. And Richard Ashworth, who is a Feng Shui master. And I would really love to dedicate this week's call to Sunbird, who is a water carrier from Glastonbury who tragically passed away a year or so ago. And he was, I have a real feeling that there was a cosmic link that introduced me to Matt, because we've both drunk the drops of his water that he carried around his neck. I saw you on stage, Matt, at Skip Archimedes' event, and I had a sense that I had to connect with you, and I interviewed you that day for Source, and it was a very poignant connection, it felt. So I really would love to dedicate this week's call to Sunbird. So, okay, I'm going to come first to Matt, who was one of the inspirations for this week's theme. So welcome, Matt. Talk to us about water and your work with Masaru Emoto.
Thank you very much for inviting me for a start. And it was a great pleasure to meet you at Skip Archimedes' event. And also I met Sunbird. He came around my house literally about 6 months or so before he passed away. So he was a great inspiration to me. And it's funny how everyone who's involved in water seems to flow towards and meet each other. It's really quite inspirational. That's actually my journey of meeting Masaru Emoto as well, where I met him probably about 4 years ago now, and started under him what's known as the Hado course, which is a very simple course, and it still goes on today. And if anyone wants to do it, please ask me afterwards, because you can go to Japan, you can take water crystal photographs yourself. In a nutshell, the work that is known to the world is how he exposed water to various levels of what we might call vibration. He would call that word Hado, and I can explain that word a little bit later. And that might be the vibration of thoughts, intent, words, prayers, symbols, music, and various other things as well, both locally to the water and with groups of people, and also collectively around the planet as well, so remotely as well, how it would affect water from a distance. And from that, through getting water and freezing water, that the nature of the information carried in this vibration was stored within the water. And then by unfreezing the water through the unfreezing method, a beautiful crystal would emerge or not emerge. So he showed that there was inherent beauty in the nature and thoughts and the inherent beauty in the structure of our thoughts, our words, and our prayers. And water became a messenger. It became a means of allowing us to see the invisible. Effectively, he was the first person ever to show the invisible and make it become visible. And so everything that a lot of the ancients have been talking about, and our thoughts and our words, can be seen through their various beauty, through the geometric beauty and structure and the order of water.
So Feng Shui is wind and water, in the sense that the very earliest statement of Feng Shui is that the qi comes down from the mountain on the wind and is held in the water. The water holds all energy, good or bad, under the right circumstances. So it's fundamental to Feng Shui. The most powerful thing that you can do is to place water correctly to hold the appropriate energy. Now, water has two natures in terms of the Feng Shui model, the Feng Shui approach, if you like. One is it is elementally something. It comes somewhere between metal and wood. So it has a fluid, shapeless, communicative quality. Water is communication. That is not to say that water is like communication or symbolizes communication. It is communication. All water is trying to reach all other water at any given time. And if I were to spill my cup of tea here onto the floor and spill another one over there, they would try to reach each other. That's what's happening. And so water is communication. And as someone said earlier, we're 75% water. Now, in Feng Shui, what is important is what Anne was saying about moving water was a very interesting way to express this. What's important is what's called sentimental water. So when I place a water feature, it has to be gently aerated. If it's stagnant, it is becoming wood, because it will have algae and all sorts of stuff, and eventually it will become a swamp and it will become wood. It is not water if it is stagnant. It has to be gently aerated. This is called sentimental water. And the trick is to place that precisely in place and in time. You put it precisely in place because every person and every building and every nation and every location has a different quality to it. So where the water needs to be is different to hold the energy. You place it in time so that you freeze that moment and hang on to it. So the underlying theory, and the Chinese expression of this tends to be very different from the very interesting scientific explanations that I've been listening to, Kristen particularly. But the idea of it is that that moment is preserved. So when I place a water feature precisely in time, people will sometimes say, oh, I've turned it off. I say, well, turn it back on again, for God's sake, because that moment has been lost. And it's rare that there's more than 1 or 2 moments that are any use for placing water in any given month.
I'm coming at water from an absolutely essential part of human life. If we do not drink sufficient water throughout the day, then we run the risk of seriously dehydrating ourselves and getting not only wrinkles and looking older, but we can also shrivel up all of the organs inside us so that we don't function properly. And one way that you can tell if you are not getting sufficient water is the colour of your urine. If it's yellow, then you've not been drinking enough water. It should look like water coming out, almost the same as it does when it goes in.
So Anne, this is part of your expertise as a nutritionist. So talk to us about what types of water, because I was given a bit of a scare story about bottled water absorbing all of the things in the plastic. And are
Yes.
you an advocate of mountain water or filtered water, or what's your advice?
Right, my advice is never ever buy bottled water that comes in plastic bottles from the supermarkets, because the plastic that it's in will leach into the water and can be very, very damaging to the health. If you do buy bottled water, try and buy bottled water that comes in glass bottles. If you can have a reverse osmosis system in your house, then that is fantastic water. If you have, for example, a water filter, in a jug, then I was listening to Skip Archimedes earlier, who is wonderful. And what he suggested was that if you do keep your water in a water filter, then pour it into a glass and then take another glass and pour it back and forwards between the two, because then that is moving water, it's running water. That's the best way to drink it.
So I'm Kyriacou, known as the House Whisperer. I've worked with harmonics and energy and music since a child. And going back as far as the early 70s, I experimented with harmonics by hooking up the back of TV screens with a scientist friend. So this was before computers, before software, and playing music on the keyboard and watching the amazing geometric patterns appear, which are what we're seeing in the water now with Masaru Emoto's work. And so the concept of harmony equals pure geometry has always fascinated me. And of course, as an architect, looking back, studying art, the masters, the ancient architects, they all talk about using sacred geometry in different ways, the golden mean, the divine proportion, which is the heart harmonic, and is in fact how I work with that geometry to purify water. So this whole thing of memory in water is fascinating. And the work I do with buildings and people is exactly this. So as an analogy, I see the house as the computer and the water molecules as the software, which remembers everything that has ever happened, seen, happy, sad. And that's what we read when we go into a property. It's like, what is space? What is space clearing? I mean, for me, there's no such thing as space clearing. It's space alignment. But what are we aligning it back to? Back to source, back to pure cosmic geometry, which is what the water crystals show when music or intention or words are spoken in harmony. So if we look at it, there's two aspects I've kind of come to realize working with this. One is the molecular structure of water in every building material. It is and holds up because it has water. If there was no water, moisture content, it would turn to dust. We would have no buildings. We would have no objects. So everything contains water molecules, therefore will absorb and remember people's emotions, attitudes, and so on. So the other aspect of reading the energy in a space is in the invisible structure of space, in Akasha. There is no such thing as empty space. It is like a spider web, a grid of geometry. And it's either in sacredness, in accordance with cosmic geometry and law, or it isn't. And when it's not, it's like taking a grid or a spider web and crunching it up. So within that invisible space is also held the memory of whatever has happened. So I can walk into a room and connect with the spirit that might be stuck in that space, or see something that happened 200 years ago because it's left its imprint in the space. And by connecting in the present moment, I can see whether it's people, memories, and it's like an organic quantum timeline. And I'm shown like a video replay. So that water content holding the story is replayed, but it's replayed because I press replay by being in the present moment with the intention of being in service to whoever I'm there for in the building. And by pressing replay, the whole story of whatever's held in water is shown to me, and then I can then adjust whatever is needed, tell the client what their link is, because there's often a karmic link. We're never anywhere by accident. There are no accidents in that sense in this world. So we're drawn to a house through the resonance, the memory in the water. And if we can read it, we can actually then work with it.
Matt and I, along with another friend of ours, have been working gradually and slowly together in a very practical, visceral, but profoundly spiritual manner by engaging with the flow of water. So a little while ago, a month or two back, we met on Hampstead Heath on a Sunday morning. A large group of people, Matt, myself, and another friend, and a large collection of people arrived. And what we actually did, we located the spring that was the source of the River Fleet. So the River Fleet runs Hampstead Heath down through London, down Fleet Street, of course, underneath to the River Thames. And what we did, we actually found the source, the very place where the water arose from the ground, and we cleared and nurtured that space between us, facilitating a stronger, powerful flow. And whilst we were doing that, or just previous to doing that, we created what we described as a medicine for the world, where we put our intentions and wishes and prayers into a single container that we then seeded, thus would flow down through the vast network of fractal and complex tributaries down to the River Thames. And Matt and I have talked over the past few years, we've known each other a few years, about creating some sort of movement whereby primarily children would be encouraged to get to know, encourage and nurture their own water source. So we take the water from our taps, but do we, us collection of people, know where our nearest spring is? Maybe, maybe not. Also, have you visited that spring and actually nurtured it, had a conversation, planting your intentions and wishes as you encourage that flow? So this is water work on a very grand scale, a global scale, but working locally. And I'd like to suggest that Rachel has the facility and the capacity to organize, bring together a group of people that I'm sure, you know, the time is correct, Matt and I and our other friend would happily come and instruct in this process. It is play, it's fun and profoundly moving. So that's my real reason for coming to this conversation, is to suggest that something, and it will be very cinematic. It's quite a beautiful process, Rachel. So perhaps I can leave with that wish that we can gather at a spring somewhere and create this story, and the water will continue to do the work for us.
And Dr. Emoto Masaru, I met him at long last, because I've been following his work for years, because when I looked at photographing ice crystals to actually show the effect of energizing water with specific intents, there it is. There it is visually, and amongst many other things, evidence that the transformation technique is not just a woo-woo thing, but you can actually see the water, you can see the changes in it. Previous to that, the only change we could see was somebody's lifestyle and successes and so on, which is obviously the most important thing. But here you could actually see in the technique itself the fact that water can change its appearance, even on the most physical level, as ice crystals. So I've been following Dr. Masaru Emoto for years, and then one day, and I got the news that he would be doing a ceremony for the blessing of the River Thames by the Cleopatra's Needle on the north bank of the Thames in London. And so I got there before anyone else, set up the tripod, and went across the road into a breakfast cafe and just kept an eye out. And then a few minutes later, the man himself shows up. So I went over to him and basically asked permission to film it. And his eyes lit up, and I was expecting all kinds of camera crews there, the way the event had been publicized, but I was the only one with a camera, and his eyes lit up, and he said, "Yes, we've got to get this out there." Suddenly, you know, I was the angel sent by God for having a camera there.
I've been working with sound and vibration as a way of opening up the heart. And when you kind of visualize that we are about 75% water, then you can imagine the devastation that can be wreaked upon us by all the disharmonious frequencies that we're swimming in at the moment. You know, from Wi-Fi to listening to the news is having an impact on. So I truly believe that you can create a new imprint in the water memory of a person's physical body with changing harmonics and vibration through sound, but mainly through helping people find their own vibration, their own sound, and getting back to that harmonious broadcast that they're looking to attract into their lives through what they're giving out. So that's the interesting thing, is bringing awareness to how vital having an awareness of what water carries and how it can affect our state of health and our well-being. So yes, I'm experimenting a lot with sound and vibration and water. And what's really interesting, obviously most things that grow need water to grow. And my mother brought around some little, just some little leaves and little shoots of daffodils. And they hadn't burst forth or were showing any kind of sign of being spring-like. And so I did an experiment with them the other day and just literally started talking to them about how beautiful they were and how much they enhanced my life, and just give them lots of love. And the next day, 4 little buds sort of appeared. And so it's quite interesting to see how your vibration can affect the growth of things as well. I
just want to go back to the origin of some of Emoto's work. I mean, the second side I want to do is water research as well. So everything we're talking about, whether it's health or buildings or plants, all that sort of stuff, I have an aspect there as well. But on the focus of Emoto's original work, he did what was known as Haddo counseling. Now, Haddo, what he'd do, he'd read the vibrations of patients, basically. He was a doctor of alternative medicine. That's his origin. He was not a water researcher to begin with. So he'd read the vibration using a magnetic resonance analyzer. But he'd look at the vibrations, right, in the physical, right down to the energetic, to the mental, almost to the karmic and the soul level as well. A different level of thinking obviously in the Eastern philosophy. And it'd read discordant vibrations there, and then impart those vibrations, cancel out those vibrations, and then input new vibrations into the water, and you drink the water. Now, funny thing, he was doing this 20, 30 years ago. Now, at the water conference in Bulgaria, and I'd really, really entice people to go there, they are now actually saying as well that the future of medicine, we probably all know this as well, is sound, color, light, vibration in water. And that really is the medicine at all. But through Emoto's study of vibration and through his understanding of Haddo, okay, which is really the source of all vibration, it's not the vibration itself, it's the quality of the source that creates the vibration. So we all talk about vibration, and not a lot of people really know what vibration is, and actually science struggles with understanding what vibration is, what energy is, and all that sort of stuff. And Emoto kind of proves there's a quality aspect to it that emerges from a place of silence. Okay, so it's very important that environment that we put around the water, what is that? Because it gathers all the information from that. Going back to his findings from Haddo counseling, which is now being proven by modern science, actually, there's a correlation between that, is that he realized that, the human body is, and I know people are saying this anyway, is directly related to the patterns in the universe. So from his understanding of vibration, he understood the nature of the human body, the nature of vibration, the nature of viruses. And so he was able to heal people by looking at that from a vibrational point of view. His journey into water was because he was using water as the medium, the carrier of those vibrations. He then wanted some way of proving it, making it visible, and that's how he created the way to produce the invisible and make it visible through water.
Thinking about the work of Emoto and the findings, the impact of that is because humans are 70-80% water. When we meet someone, we have an impact through the eyes and the energy that we project onto them. So we have a massive impact in that relationship through that ability to transmute, a bit like Gabriel was saying, our ability to transmute whatever's going on into alignment and into the highest vibration.
Well, once we start to understand it, we realize we have a huge responsibility. We can start to look at what water's true purpose is. And that's a very difficult question to answer. What is water? What is water's true purpose? Very difficult questions to really answer and really get a set definition, because it's very enigmatic, very mysterious. And that's part of it, actually, that we don't actually need to understand. You just dive into the water journey, and the journey reveals its mystery to you. And what it does, really, it creates more questions, more mystery. It allows you to go on a deeper journey, and you get answers that lead to more mysterious kind of understanding. But when you're coming to what you're saying there, water is a mediator between the body and nature. It's a mediator between nature and the cosmos. The human body is a mediator between the body and the cosmos as well. And then surrounding all of that, you might want to call that consciousness or mind. Now, depending on the quality of the mind, the quality of the consciousness, both individually and collectively, it will affect the water in itself. We're talking about, is it SAS down there, about the pollution of water. Emoto stated, okay, that the hado of water is polluted. Now that's a general statement. So the overall consciousness, collective vibration in water is polluted. So one of the things I was looking to do is, how can you eradicate or clean that memory, that vibrational, collective vibrational into water? And some of the people here are doing amazing jobs, really beautiful jobs. I actually talk about, I mean, the human body is really 99% molecularly speaking water. A lot of people talk about it volume. I want to push it beyond the physical domain, because it's too limiting to talk about water in the physical. It really is. And talk about health or lots of stuff. It's really, we've got to understand its flow. We spoke about movement. Water is about movement. The act of living is the act of flowing, one of Emoto's comments. And it's to keep that water movement flowing. And it's the quality of the movement, the quality of the flow, that really dictates and allows water to open its sense organs and allows cosmic influences, which we don't know what we're getting to have its influence and collect its information from the environment. So it's the quality of everything. And what is the quality of the information? Realistically, water seems to be a carrier of light and sound. And Emoto would perhaps call that the hado. What is the quality of the information in the light, in the sound? That is the hado. So what is that quality?
The world that we exist in today is largely predicated upon computational systems. So we're all existing and communicating now through a computational matrix that's comprised of, it's called a binary system, a naught and a one, an on and an off. And this relates to the I Ching, all these open, close, single gate, on, off, on, off. And so we have this binary system of ubiquitous communication. And I had a vision wherein I saw this system evolving. So it grew from a naught and a one, an on, off, a Morse code, a dot, dash, into a naught, one, two. So there's a computational system called ternary computation, whereby the system is described as an evolutionary process of computation. So when I was trying to describe and understand the nature of the naught and the one and the one of the two, it occurred to me that the most prevalent 1-2 we have in our world is the water molecule, the 1 and the 2, H2O. And so subsequently, it drew me immediately to the referencing to Matt's conversation, whereby water carries and distributes information. And somehow this is integral within our own body systems, how things will communicate. And thus the future of computation, I feel, lies in an evolution from 0-1 to 1-2, with water embedded within us and within structures of buildings, landscapes, is the future of computation. And this isn't entirely random, obscure thing. The French did experiments in the 18th century at the Palace of Versailles, where they had all different water chambers where they would make judgments about and predictions about where society would move by adjusting water one way, and it would cause variations to rise. This is a crude sort of mechanism of understanding the distribution of communication. But also this was experimented with the Russians in the 1970s, and now at universities in America, they're looking at water as computer. But my vision was that water has intelligence, which aligns again with, closely aligns with Matt's understanding. So water has intelligence, and the future of computation, I believe, is going to arise in ternary as opposed to binary, and it's going to be very much related to water.
I didn't want to leave this without mentioning the work of Victor Schauberger, who in some ways is Emoto's Western counterpart, who demonstrated that weed killers and fertilizers and all sorts of artificial stimulants to plants were unimportant if you looked after the water properly. And I would encourage people who are interested in water, in addition to studying Emoto, and in addition to understanding the Chinese principles of wind and water, studying Schauberger's work, which is incredibly visionary. So.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. So thank you all for coming on. It's been a fascinating discussion and obviously such a huge topic for us to cover in 1 hour. But thank you to Lorraine, Gabriel, CEO of the Museum of Cultural Arts. Thank you to Matt Thornton, Director of the Emoto Peace Project UK. To Mark Golding, the Water Visionary. Anne Peckham, who is a lifestyle coach and author. Gabriel Dayan, who's the founder of Transformation Masters. Kyriacou, who is a sound healer and the house whisperer. Richard Ashworth, who is a Feng Shui master, and Bullock, who is a sound healer. So thank you all for coming on. It's been a wonderful conversation. And thank you.